We've got some breaking news on a Monday night. Apparently, one of the interior offensive linemen that TCU was really counting on to kind of rework and remodel their O-line this year will be out for the season. We'll talk about that and more next here on Lockdown Horned Frogs, your team every day.
You are Locked On Horned Frogs, your daily podcast on the TCU Horned Frogs. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. Thanks for making the show your first to listen. Please subscribe on YouTube or your favorite podcast platform. We're free and available wherever it is you get your podcast. Sonny Dykes met with the media after practice on Monday. They had an evening practice, got going at 6 p.m. Tonight, or I guess yesterday, because most of you are probably listening to this on Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon. But some news that came down on the injury front. Kade Bennett, if you missed it over the offseason, Kade Bennett is a transfer from San Diego State. He was an all-Mountain West Conference offensive lineman over the past 2 seasons and projected as possibly one of the starting guards for the Frogs this year. He is out for the year. Sonny Dykes told the media, this is from Steven Johnson from the Fort Worth Star-Telegram. Sonny Dykes says Kade Bennett has a disc injury. It flared up over the summer, and he'll require surgery and be out for the year. So there's really no way to sugarcoat this. Like, this is a big blow. Now, Kade was a guy who was supposed to come in during the summer, so he wasn't a part of spring practice. They had other players in those roles during the spring. There's also a battle at center going on. Sonny Dykes also mentioned that Colton Deary and James Brockermeyer have been competing at the center spot. They're both versatile and could play guard. He says he believes they could be 2 of the 5 starters. So if I had to guess right now, I think the way they'll try to solve this is they're letting Colton Deary and James Brockermeyer duke it out at that center spot. They're giving them reps with the ones to see who wins the job. Whoever loses that job will most likely move over to guard. And we actually saw this work pretty well a couple of years back. Now, Steve Avila is a totally different story because that's like an All-American caliber offensive lineman. But he played center during his career out of necessity. But then they went and got Alan Ali in the transfer portal from SMU, and he was a center by trade. So they put him at that spot, and they were able to just slide Steve over to that guard position, and it really helped solidify that offensive line. So I think from a starter's perspective, you're still in pretty good shape with the interior O-line. If it projects with, say, Colton Deary on one side, then James Brockermeyer at center, and Carson Bruno on the other. Carson Bruno, another transfer player. He played tackle at La Tech the past few seasons, but they've slid him to the inside of the offensive line. But the depth is really where this hurts because Bennett could have been a starter. At the very least, he was going to be a dude that could run with the twos if he had to. You know, behind those players at this moment, you've got guys like Remington Strickland, who is a transfer player from Texas A&M and got a good number of starts during spring practice and even early in fall camp while they were trying to kind of get things shifted around. But, you know, Ben Taylor Whitfield is going to play at the tackles position. Samir Camacho played tackle in high school, and he's a true freshman. I don't really expect that he's going to be a huge factor this year. You know, same story with a guy like Wesley Harvey. So there's just a number of players. Robbie Rochester may be an option, the transfer from UConn who came in a couple of years back. But this really hurts the two deep if you want to look at it that way. And the other part is if you have an injury at that center position, I mean, the good news is I guess potentially you could slide whoever is currently competing for that job and loses that. You can just slide them over to snap the football, but then who do you put at the guard spot? So not great. And unfortunately, TCU's had some bad luck the last few years with transfer guys that have just had injury problems. I mean, nothing you can do about it. And I hate this for Kade Bennett. I know he wants to play. He wants to be a part of this. He does have more eligibility left. So I guess the silver lining is that he can come back and play next season if he sees fit and if the coaching staff wants to roll with them. Hopefully they can find somebody, you know, in the meantime who'll be a solid option again. I don't really feel like, I mean, this could affect your starting offensive line also, but I think the bigger issue here is just the depth because at tackle, you're already pretty thin. And so the hope was that interior offensive line would be in a better position than what you had on the outside. And now I'm not sure that's the case with Bennett being out for the season. But we'll see how it plays out. AJ Ricker, Sonny Dykes will have to kind of have a meeting of the minds and decide which way they want to move forward. And that's just how it's going to be. Injuries happen every season at all positions, and this is where coaches really have to shine and do their best work in finding guys who can be serviceable in others' absences. Staying on the injury front, so Steven Johnson with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram also had this report over the weekend that there were some issues in the corner room, some guys that had gone down and could be out for a while. And the update that Sonny gave on Avery Helm and Vernon Glover was that they both got banged up. Not sure how long either of them will be out. Steven Johnson said that both were at practice today with a large brace on their knee, and Coach Dykes said they'll know more in the next 48 to 72 hours. Now, I know both of these injuries were non-contact injuries. When you talk about non-contact injuries with knees, that's usually not a great sign, but I'm not going to speculate because I wasn't there when it happened. I'm not a doctor, and so I don't know. But usually non-contact injury with knees can mean that somebody's out for a while. Maybe it's just a sprain, and for those players' sake, I hope it is. Avery Helm would be a big loss. I mean, I know there were some people that got frustrated with him at times, but I think Avery Helm's a really good corner. I feel like also the transition they're making with this defense, and Malcolm Kelly said this a couple days back when he spoke with the media. He said the main thing he's seen, of course, as a receivers coach, this would come up with him more, or I guess this probably stand out with him more, but the defense is playing a lot more press man coverage in these practices. So Andy Avalos is allowing his corners to be physical, to get up and jam guys, try to not allow free releases, and is having them play on an island more than they were last season. And that's really where Avery Helm, when he was at Florida, thrived. He was good in those one-on-one situations. And so I think this defense is more well-suited for what he does. Vernon Glover is an exciting young player, but if you lose Helm, and that's your top corner going into the year. Now, Glover was going to be more of a rotation guy, but still he was, I think, looking to have significant playing time this season. The good news is they have some depth at that spot, but, man, I mean, losing Helm especially is a big deal. As far as who could step up, Lamarian James had a really good spring practice, and Channing Canada was here last year, the JUCO transfer. Travis Broughton, the Utah transfer, who has a lot of experience under his belt. So, I mean, maybe like Lamarian James and Channing Canada are your starters for that Stanford game if Helm and Glover can't go, and then you can rotate in guys like Broughton. The issue is once you get past that, you get pretty young at that position. So I don't know how, there was a time where you thought maybe you could be 4 or 5 deep with the corners, and that could lead to playing more nickel packages. But it'll be fascinating to kind of see how they rearrange the depth chart and stack things now with Helm and Glover possibly missing some time. But it sounds like they're going to do some testing, get some more information over the next few days before they give any sort of timetable. So hopefully there's good news on that front. But, yeah, Kade Bennett out for the season, and Vernon Glover and Avery Helm possibly out for, some time with injuries. And full pad just got put on today. So hopefully this is kind of it for a while with a rash of injuries. You expect this somewhat during fall camp, but, man, this was just – the Kade Bennett thing was obviously an off-season issue. It didn't really have anything to do with practice. And then with Helm and Glover, it sounded like it was just kind of a freak thing, non-contact injuries. But unfortunate for those players because expectations were high for both of them going into the season. Some other notes from Sonny's press conference after practice today. He said Todd Graham and Dana Holgerson are there to help coach me. There will be limited interaction with the players, but he's excited about what they can bring to the program. So, this has been something that's gone on in college football for a long time now, the idea of having analysts and having kind of CEOs that help with, being a sounding board for the head coach. And so now you got 2 former head coaches who know Sonny well, who have a good relationship with him, and hopefully can be honest and forthright about what they're seeing, what they feel like needs to change, what's happening and what's going on well. And I feel like the biggest advantage for this is last season it just seemed like the coaching staff didn't have a great feel for the team. They had high expectations going into the year that didn't necessarily pan out, and Sonny said multiple times this offseason, well, Leadership wasn't really there. I don't think we did a great job of, preparing at times. And so hopefully these guys can add some accountability to both sides of the ball. I mean, Todd Graham on the defense, Dana Holgorsen on the offense. But it sounds like they're also just going to be, with college football now, there's more and more that goes into being a head coach. And so allowing him to, be a true CEO, maybe take some things off his plate, be a sounding board, give some good input. I think all those things could be beneficial for the Frogs this upcoming season. So, Todd Graham working with the defense, Dana Holgorsen working with the offense, 2 former head coaches at different stops. And, we'll see what Dana's future entails. I would guess that he wants to be a head coach again. And maybe this is just kind of a 1-year stop, try to figure out what his next move is and what possibilities could be available for him this next offseason. But, man, his offensive mind is a strong one. And you just wonder what his aspirations are moving forward and if he would ever be interested in some sort of role within the offensive staff that was more on the field and more hands-on moving forward. When we come back, I want to revisit a topic from yesterday, Gary Patterson moving on from Baylor and what that could possibly mean for TCU. This is your team. We do it here every day. FanDuel Sports is in full swing. Go to FanDuel.com/lockedon or visit the FanDuel app. Download the FanDuel app today. It is super easy to use. You love sports. You never want them to stop, but we're in the middle of the summer. Major League Baseball is really the only thing going on, but it's the perfect time to join because FanDuel gives boost and bonuses to their customers every day during the summer. That's right. Every day during the summer, you get a booster bonus according to FanDuel. Also, preseason football started up last week. We're going to have more of it this week. Football's right around the corner. College football coming out soon. There's over-unders on win totals. There's all kinds of opportunities at FanDuel.com or the FanDuel app. Get started today. FanDuel, official betting partner of Major League Baseball and a proud sponsor of the Locked On Network. So if you missed Monday's show, you want to revisit it. Actually, first, let me tell you about Locked On College Football, because I know hopefully you're making Locked On Horned Frogs your first listen of the day. But here's a show you should make your second listen, Locked On College Football. Spencer McLaughlin, he's the host. He does a great job. He's going to break down everything. There's all kinds of new things in college football now, transfer portal, NIL, expanded college football playoff. Make Locked On College Football your second listen of the day. Subscribe on YouTube or on your favorite podcast platform. Monday's episode, it was fun. I talked to Cam Stewart from Locked On Baylor about Gary Patterson leaving the Baylor program. He had signed on to be, initially it sounded like he was going to be an analyst. To hear Gary tell it, he was more of a consultant and was really helping with a lot of the off-the-field things, kind of some big picture situations, just being someone that Dave Aranda could sort of talk candidly with about the way the program was moving. And he felt like he had done everything he could do by the end of the summer. Apparently him and Dave had a conversation in June. And he said, you know what? I think it's best that we go our separate ways. And that's what ended up happening. So he did go on to say he did an exclusive interview with Matt Mosley, and Cam Stewart's part of that show. And so that's part of the reason I had him on. But he did say at some point that for this upcoming season, even though he wouldn't really be in the building anymore and didn't plan on necessarily helping, he was going to be available if Baylor needed help. Like, he was a phone call away. But then moving forward, I guess he has his options open to do what he wants. And it got me thinking, because I was not happy when I heard about Gary taking this job at Baylor. I wasn't happy when he took the job at Texas. I mean, I wasn't necessarily upset with him. I just found it confusing. I found it odd. And yeah, I mean, he took a job with two of the Frogs' biggest rivals. The Texas thing kind of made sense. And he sort of, anytime he would explain it to people, he would say, well, it was just an opportunity I had to kind of decompress, take some notes, figure out what other people are doing in the world of college football and sort of plot what my next move could be and hopefully get back into coaching at a high level and being a head coach again one day. And those opportunities, at least to this point, didn't materialize. Now, one thing that surprised me, Mac Engel from the Fort Star Telegram, he wrote a column this week where he said that Gary was the number 2 choice for the Houston job. And I don't remember hearing that when that hiring cycle was going on. Willie Fritz got that job pretty quickly. But my recollection was that Gary didn't even get an interview with Houston. Now, it's possible that, like, they reached out to Willie Fritz, there was mutual interest, and it was just like, all right, this is our dude. We're going to make this happen. Now, maybe if he would have said no, they would have been more there would have been more communication with Gary, and they would have opened up that chance to talk to him. But yeah, that was my recollection, was that there was no real smoke there. Apparently there might have been, though. And obviously that didn't happen. That didn't pan out. So he ends up taking this job at Baylor, and it was kind of weird from the start. I think it would be tough because I know Sonny Dykes, he's trying to do his own thing. He's trying to form his own identity with this team. But I wonder if Gary would ever be interested in coming back. And I think it would have to be in the type of role that Dana Holgerson is in right now, or Todd Graham, where he's not on the field with the players, but it would be more of, hey, could you help us, give us some insight? Eventually, I want him to be connected with the school again, because as rough as the last few years of his tenure were, and then since then, he's taking other jobs and other opportunities. I mean, he built this thing. Like, there is no Locked On Horned Frogs without Gary Patterson, because the program's probably still in the conference realignment wilderness. And just to be candid, there's most likely not an appetite for a daily podcast about TCU athletics. He got the team and the program back to relevancy and got them in the Big 12, put them on the national landscape again, all the things. If you're listening to this, you understand it. And so I don't want there to always just be this weird chasm between him and the university and the athletic department. I imagine now's not the right time. It wouldn't matter at this moment anyway, because TCU's kind of made their hires. I just said he feels like he's got some loyalty to Baylor, at least for this year, or if they needed him to do something, he would be available to do it. But moving forward, I hope that can get smoothed over, because it's become a joke, but geez, there's a statue on campus for the guy. He did a lot of things right for a long time. I wish it would have been more cordially, but he's always been somebody with a chip on his shoulder and did things his own way. And typically people like that, they're not going to gracefully bow out. Like, it has to sort of come to an end in a way where the other person has to make the decision. I think that was the right decision to let him go and move on, but I hate that he's just totally, like, sort of disconnect. Not totally. I know he still plays golf with boosters, and I've heard that he's around at times, but that he's not really in any sort of capacity with the program where he can be a voice that supports it. So we'll see what happens, but yeah, it was surprising to me. And when I listened to his interview and heard his thoughts, it came off to me. He sounded like a guy that just didn't really know what he wanted to do. I feel like he wants to coach. He mentioned multiple times he really loved being around the players, and that was his favorite part about it. I think he wants to be a head coach because he doesn't really want to take orders from anybody. But to be a head coach, he would have to get an offer to do that. And I also don't think he wants to deal with everything that head coaches have to deal with now. Like, he's not interested in organizing and understanding NIL collectives and how to navigate that. there's a lot of things that coaches have to do now that even 5 years ago they didn't really have to dive into. So all of that makes it tough. But, man, I hope eventually things can get sort of to a place where he can be more involved with the program. When we come back, we'll get some of your reaction, and a future TCU women's basketball player won an Olympic medal today. We'll talk about that and more next here on Locked On Horned Frogs, your team every day. eBay Motors. If you need a part for your car, whether it's to level it up to peak performance or just maintain its current state, go to ebaymotors.com. Use their guaranteed fit program. You put in the make and model of your vehicle. You find the part you need, and they'll tell you once you put in the shopping cart whether it's the right part for your car or not. So make it simple for you. eBay Motors, millions of parts for your MVP. Burn rubber, not cash with eBay Motors. You can't mess around with your ride. Keep it at its peak performance with the help of eBay Motors. Again, that guaranteed fit program, not available to U.S. customers. Millions of parts for your MVP. Big selection. They can help you narrow it down. eBay Motors, it's the place to go if you need a part for your car. So I don't know if this is the first time that this has been part of the Summer Olympics, but it's the first time that I remember it. There's been a men's and women's 3-on-3 basketball competition, and they play it outdoors. The games are really quick, and I've enjoyed it. I know some people have complained about it. The U.S. hasn't done as well as folks maybe expected. They're still really focusing on putting a lot of their main talent on the 5-on-5 variety. But Haley Vanlith was part of this 3-on-3 team and the women's basketball team, USA women's basketball team. And they lost their first 3 games in pool play. They started out 0-3. Things didn't look great, but they rallied and they ended up winning a bronze medal. They defeated Canada today. They lost to Spain in the semifinals, but Haley was a huge part of this. She showed some real toughness. She got some tough buckets today, had a turnaround, like fadeaway jumper, had a few dimes, getting her teammates involved. Obviously 3-on-3, a lot of pick and roll, and that's what Mark Campbell wants to do with this basketball team when they get back together once practice starts. So I'm sure it was a super cool experience. Proud of how that team rallied after, like I said earlier, getting off to a bad start. And, there's not a lot of people in the world get to say they won an Olympic medal. And so congratulations to her. I'm super excited to see what she can do when she gets to campus. And, man, it's just hard not to be fired up about this team. Whether it's Sedona Prince, Haley Vanlith, Maddie Shear, there's a lot of ladies that can hoop and they can play at a high level. And somehow Mark Campbell has immediately flipped the script with this program and turned it into a place where there's a lot of energy and enthusiasm. And that's all super exciting. So we'll see how it plays out when they hit the court, but I'm excited to watch them this year. A couple of you had thoughts about Gary Patterson leaving Baylor. Jacob Langford said, take a step back. Yes, that is one of his famous songs, and I'm sure he'll get back into songwriting now that he's got more time on his hands. Jim Norris says, I'm not sure that Aranda is equipped to be able to meld Coach P into the fold without feeling threatened. It's probably not a great idea to bring him on chemistry-wise unless the head coach is a guy like Saban. Yeah, I mean, Gary did say that it was different with this job because the head coach was also very involved in the defensive, room, and he never really alluded to what that meant. But I think there's a possibility there were some personality clashes here, and not necessarily that it had to be ugly, but enough that they just kind of said, well, you know what, let's take a step back and not do this and maybe get out before things get bad. But yeah, super weird thing. He's moving on, and I guess we'll see where he lands next and what opportunities he has moving forward. This is the Locked On Horned Frogs. We'll be back tomorrow. It's your team every day.